For this model, we have a classic side part hairstyle, but what's really popular now, especially with the young kids, is a nice low taper and styling the hair on top with a little bit of lift into kind of a modified pompadour. So that's what we're going to do for this young guy. So what we want to do is, the first thing I like to do is comb all the hair straight back, and I want to find the part. So as I'm combing the hair straight back, we can see, you can bend your head down for you, we can see where the hair wants to break. So where that hair wants to break, that's his natural part, and I want to cut it to his natural part. We'll just make sure we have it. And I personally like when that natural part coincides with the V in the hairline here. So if you see where it comes to a V right there, that's where I like to take that straight back. We're not actually going to cut the part in. He has a very strong part anyway, so when we style it, you're going to see that. You're going to see it anyway. There's no sense in really cutting it in. And before you do that, you always want to make sure you check with the parents anyway to make sure that that's okay. Now, he's got a little bit of a calic in front, so we want to make sure that a nice little wave there, so we want to make sure we leave it longer in front. And then I'm going to spin him around here to show you the back so you can see what we're dealing with in the back. A few things we're dealing with. So when I'm combing that hair, when you're combing the hair down and it looks like it wants to jump out, that means there's a pretty good chance if you cut it, it's going to stick out even more. So we want to make sure that when we cut it, we have a pretty extreme angle that we're cutting it on, and we leave it longer so that it doesn't stand out. And also on his hairline at the bottom, we're going to do a nice taper. But if you look really closely, it has like a little bit of a tail in the middle. It grows down lower in the corners. And then he has a little bit of weak spots here and here. So we have a couple choices. You know, we can try to taper out the tail and taper out the corners and let those spots show, or we can bring the hairline up and taper it up a little bit higher. I think for this, since these spots aren't too high up on the hairline, I'm going to taper it all up higher so it looks even. But if these went up any higher, sometimes you just have to work with the hairline that you're giving. But he definitely has a difficult one. So when we cut the top, as I said, we're going to over direct the front back to leave it longer in the front, but we're going to have to do the same thing in the back here. So as we're working our way towards the back, we want to picture this angle in our mind so that the hair is longer in the front and the hair is longer in the back. So when we cut the back, the same way we're going to over direct it this way, we're going to come from the back and we're going to do the same thing and over direct it this way. And then when we're cutting this part, we're going to angle it this way. So what that's going to do, it's going to take this circle here, which is the toughest part for most haircuts, and we're going to leave this whole circle longer. But we're not going to do it by trying to eyeball it. We're going to do it by over directing the hair, so we're going to do it systematically so it's going to be layered in and even. Now as we're working our way towards the back, same thing again. We're going to comb the hair straight across. I'm going to take the first tooth of the comb. I'm going to put it right on the crown and comb straight across. So there's his pivot. We're going to comb straight across. Hold everything down with my thumb. Comb the hair down. I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to cut across, and now watch when I comb it down. The hair is automatically left. It's all layered in and even, but it's still long enough so it lays down. It's not sticking up here or sticking out there. It's a very important spot to master, is that area right there. And I want to cut the hair at a 90-degree angle or parallel to the side of the head, and we're going to work our way around to the side. But I want to do the same thing where this pivot is. I want to over direct it to the center of his head. I want to cut it away from that So I'm going to over direct it that way. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to over direct it this way. So we never actually cut right here because that's where it's going to stick out. So I can see my top guide. I'm holding my fingers parallel to the side of his head. And now I'm just going to turn the chair and keep my feet in one spot and take very small sections. And then I'm going to work my way around towards the front. So now what I want to do is now I want to over direct this hair, comb that hair out of the way and over direct it on this side. So I'm right-handed, so when I work towards the right, I'm pushing the hair. When I'm on the left, I'm pulling the hair, meaning I'm pulling it towards me with the comb. And you can keep turning the chair, but at some point the chair is going to hit your leg, and then you just step backwards. Okay, so now that gets that top section, which there wasn't a lot there to cut. And now we're going to work our way in this area here. We're going to use our scissor over comb technique around here and create a guide for our clipper work. So I'm going to stick with the same size comb, which I really like the wide teeth of this comb for my scissor over comb. But this scissor is 7 inches. I like to use 7.5 or 8 inch shear for my scissor over comb. My 7 I use for my picking it up and layering. I don't like to use a long scissor for layering, much longer than that. So we're going to use our 7.5 inch shear for the scissor over comb. And all I want to do is I want to come up and I want to meet my guide there and take an imaginary line straight up in the air until I run out of hair. Now this guide here lines right up with where his hair is going to be combed back, right there. So we don't want to cut into that or leave a hole, so we're just going to create our guide. You could also use the clipper over comb technique for this if you want. But whichever one you choose, whether it be scissor over comb or clipper over comb, you want to make sure that that comb moves really slow. So if you move the comb slow, you're not going to have any scissor marks or lines of demarcation. If you move the comb too fast, you're going to make scissor marks, especially with straight hair.
Are you a member of HowToCutHair.tv? Learn the art of men's barbering from third-generation master barber Greg Zorian in full HD, 24/7 from anywhere in the world. Sign up for your free membership and learn how to increase your efficiency and make more money behind the chair. HowToCutHair.tv.
My tools of choice for the clipper portion of this haircut are going to be a powerful detachable blade clipper. It has a rotary motor, so it goes through the hair very easily. I really like the metal blades because they allow me to go through the hair without leaving any lines of demarcation. So I'm going to start out with a 3/8 blade. And as I said before, I want to leave a finger's width between where I leave off with the clipper blade and the guide right here. So I want to leave myself some room to blend. So all the way around, I'm going to be using a very slow, controlled scooping motion so I don't leave a heavy weight line that needs to be blended out. I'm also using a larger clipper comb, and I'm using a white comb so I can see what I'm cutting, so there's contrast between the hair color and the comb. So I'm going to turn the clipper on before I snap the blade shut. I don't want to break the tongue, the plastic tongue that the blade snaps onto. So we're going to start out with the tips of the teeth, and then very slowly I'm going to roll my wrist out and float the blade away from the head. And this is going to cut as we pull away from the head. And I'm leaving myself room, as I said, between where we left off and right there. Okay, now I'm going to dip down lower in the back. Now, depending on where the occipital bone is, his occipital bone is a little bit lower. It's down here. So that's what I use as my guide as how far to dip the blade down in the back. So between that and the guide here, it leaves me that finger width to blend. And as I'm spinning the chair, I'm always checking my mirror to make sure my blend is coming out the way I want it. And then also, while I have the 1.5 blade on there, I'm going to start my taper around the outline of the haircut. I'm going to use the tip of the blade and just a quick scooping motion. So heel of the blade flat on the comb. And then we start to pull the blade away, and then just the tip of the teeth. And I want to pick an angle, an imaginary line with the comb, so by the time I get up to here, our guide does not go into the comb. We don't want to cut our guide. We want to cut to the guide, but we don't want to cut our guide. Now I'm going to bend his head forward, and I'm going to go up a little higher in the back with the taper, because we talked about in the beginning of the haircut that I want to bring it in closer so we don't see that weak spot, those two weak spots. Okay, so now I keep combing it in different directions. I want to make sure it's blending out nicely. So I'm in the open position now. I'm keeping the clipper parallel to the outline of his hair, or his natural hairline. And then on the bottom, we're going to taper it up. We're going to taper it in a little bit closer at the bottom, as we talked about before, so we don't see the two light spots. Clipper blade is in the open position. Now if you feel the shape of his head, his occipital bone comes all the way across, right here. So I'm letting the occipital bone push the clipper blade or the teeth of the blade out. And I'm staying right below that. Now I'm going to close it halfway down. Very important for this part that we have our clipper blade parallel to the floor. Now we're going to close the blade down all the way to the shortest position. So my clipper of choice for this is an outliner with a T-blade. T-blade meaning the blade comes out a little bit farther than the clipper, so we have the corner to draw that line around the ear. I want to make sure his chin is parallel to the floor and the blade is parallel to the floor. So I make my line, I turn the clipper around and I shave up to it. I pull the ear down and I get any of that hair that's on the back of his ear. And this part we have to be very careful. You want to just very lightly glide it across the skin. We don't want to use any pressure. That's the most sensitive part, is right there. Now behind the ear, he's got a few pieces of hair there sticking out. We're going to get it with the back side of the clipper. So now we have our nice outline around the ear. Now we're going to bend his head to the side. We're going to stay right on the natural hairline. And we're going to create our line here. It's not going to be super dark because we've tapered it out and the hair is short. Okay, and then we're going to shave in to it. Okay, then on the bottom, on the back of the neck, what we want to do is we want to shave in an upward motion. We want to bend his head down. We want to come down to the t-shirt line. Same thing, just lightly glide the clipper over his skin. We don't want to use any pressure. By him bending his head down, it stretches his skin out and the hair pops out. And I want to stay an inch below the hairline. So we have this nice taper.
Introducing Zorian of New York, premium grooming products for the modern man, designed by third-generation master barber Greg Zorian. Made in the USA and not tested on animals, each of our styling products is infused with natural ingredients and features light, clean fragrances. Our 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner is sulfate and paraben-free and color-safe. Do you own a barbershop or salon, rent a chair, or run a school? Find out how we support our retailers with world-class barbering education and product knowledge training. We're currently accepting applications for wholesale accounts and invite you to apply on our website, Zorian of New York.
We have two ways that we can style this haircut. We could start out with just a gel, which is going to give the hair a hold and a shiny look, and not use a hair dryer or anything. But for this particular hairstyle, we want to style into a modified pompadour. So what I want to do is the first step is we're going to apply the gel all the way through the hair, which would give it that wet look. But what we're going to do is we're going to dry it with a hair dryer into the shape that we want. Then we're going to take a really strong pomade, both products from our Zorian of New York men's grooming line. And so we're going to put the pomade in next, and then we're going to comb it through after the hair already has its shape, and the pomade's going to give it even more shine, and it's going to give it that nice look and nice hold all day. The gel has aloe vera in it, which is very good for the health of the hair and the scalp, and the pomade has jojoba and ginseng, which adds moisture and shine to the hair. So the combination of the two products is going to go a long way to making the hair look really good, really shiny, and keeping that nice style all day long. So to start out, we don't want to use too much gel because the gel is pretty thick, and we want to be able to dry it. So we want to rub it thoroughly through our hands, and then we want to start out on the top. And then we want to get it all the way down to the roots. And then the same thing in the back and on the sides. And then I'm going to use a vent brush to style it and a hair dryer with a nozzle on it because I want to direct the heat. And by directing the heat right behind the brush, it's going to hold the hair in place. Okay, so now before we put the pomade in, I want to make sure that the hair is nice and dry and we got the style that we want. So you can see now we have a lot more lift and a lot more volume. And then what I always do is check the mirror and give it a little bit of a spin. Make sure I have the hair the way I want it before I put the next product in. So now we're going to take our Zorian of New York pomade. We're going to take a good amount of it. And we want to rub it through our hands really good so it spreads easily. Okay, so there's no clumps or anything. And then we want to push it all back. Push it down on the sides, and then in front we want to, and on top we want to make sure we get it right down to the roots. Now since we still have it on our hands as we're doing this, we're kind of using our hands as a brush before we go through with the brush or a wide tooth comb. Now we're going to comb that through, lift it up in the front, push it down on the sides, comb it straight down in the back, and then on the opposite side we want to comb it straight back. And then with the excess product, what I want to do is I want to take my hand and just push it down on the sides. And in the back. Okay, now for this young man we have a modified pompadour, and we'll spin him around so you can take a look at the fade. Got the nice little wave on the top that suits this hairstyle perfectly. We got a nice one finger close taper around the outline of the haircut. So for a quick review, we put the Zorian of New York firm hold styling gel in first. We used the hair dryer to dry it all in place, and then once it was dried, we checked in our mirror and made sure we had the shape that we wanted, and then we used our Zorian of New York pomade and put that through at the very end to give it some nice shine, some more lift in the front, and for a hold for all day.